The absence of the head of state is not a problem for me in the sense that the head of state, where he is in Geneva on a short leave, he continue carrying out his functions of President of the Republic of Cameroon.
To me, there is no difference because the country has remained stagnant for the past 30 years. The question every Cameroonian should be asking is, when was the last time President Paul Biya visited any of the regions in Cameroon?
Picture this: running an entire country from another continent, not for a week, not for a month, but for over 2 months and counting. That's exactly what seems to be happening in Cameroon. President Paul Biya, the world's oldest sitting head of state at 93, left the country on June 7th for what officials called a brief private stay in Europe. He hasn't been seen at home since. But from wherever he is, reportedly Geneva, Switzerland, decrees are still being signed, ministers are still being shuffled, and now entire military commands are being reorganized. The government insists everything is fine. Investors, opposition politicians, and many ordinary Cameroonians aren't so sure. That's what's coming up. Welcome to Africa Link, the podcast connecting you to the stories that matter. I'm Lucy Riley, your host for today. Let's put this in perspective. Cameroon has no vice president and no publicly named successor within the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM. The constitution allows for a leadership vacancy to be declared, but only by the Constitutional Council, which has remained conspicuously silent. Meanwhile, the country is grappling with an ongoing separatist conflict in the Anglophone regions, Boko Haram attacks in the north, an economy under pressure, and dollar bonds recently ranked as the worst performing in Africa since June. Not exactly the moment for remote control leadership. And then there's the 93-year-old elephant in the room. Biya has led Cameroon since 1982, scrapped presidential term limits in 2008, and secured an 8th term last October in an election marred by fraud allegations and violence. If he serves out this term, he'll leave office nearing 100. So where does that leave Cameroon today? Joining me is Levi Mbushu, political and global affairs analyst, and DW's Dorcas Ekupe. Welcome to you both. Dorcas, let's start with the obvious question. 2 months without a public sighting of the president? What is the mood in Cameroon right now? And what are people actually saying?
Well, there's been a lot of discussions and talks about the president being away for 2 months now. And people are actually raising concerns about what could be the issue, what could be happening to President Paul Biya. And one of it is about his health. Cameroonians are thinking that maybe the president is ill, and if that be the case, they should be able to know what's actually happening with the president. Remember, the president has been in Geneva, Switzerland since June 7 alongside his wife, Biya. But his team has said that he's going to be out for just a brief period. But he's been away for 2 months now, as you know. And so people are asking the question if as to who is governing the nation right now. Some people are thinking that the president could be ill, but we've seen the Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, who came out to debunk rumors that President Paul Biya is sick. He said Cameroonians should not be worried. Neither should they be afraid that President Paul Biya is doing just fine and he's working from abroad. And Cameroonians should just be patient that the president is going to return soon, but no date, nothing has been said about when the president is going to return. I think that's what's happening right now in Cameroon. There's still no confirmed date for the president's return to Cameroon. However, he has been signing decrees from abroad. We just saw the recent military appointment. We saw a major military reshuffle, new commands posted. We saw colonels promoted, and the head of a presidential guard elevated for the first time. And so he's not been seen in public affairs for 2 months now.
Thanks for that, Dorcas, and also debunking the health rumors behind all of this. But Levi, help us understand something simple. How is a country supposed to run when its president disappears for 2 months and no vice president exists?
Yes, Lucy, it is as disconcerting as it is alarming, and it should be alarming when we have the kind of scenario that we have in Cameroon now, where a president disappears from public eye. Even before he traveled abroad, it was very rare to find him come out to the public, address the public. Uh, Not rumors, it's clear to everyone. It's an open secret that we do have a frail and fragile, aging and ailing president who can barely stand on his feet for a couple of hours. And now the people are wondering why. People are beginning to think that he has got handlers behind him who don't want him to be seen as frail and fragile as he is in the eyes of the public. And on May 2026, when he was last seen in public, I bet you that every time in recent years he's been coming to the public eye, the cameras would not, as much as they can, do a close-up on him. Now, all of these were questions that were beginning to bog the minds of many a Cameroonian. And then today, the president goes away. And the question on every lip is, who is running the country? And I would say to you that there are some telltale signs that we may have the kind of biblical scenario of handwriting on the wall. Joker said it, the military reshuffle, the colonels promoted to ranks of general. We had seen that on the eve of the presidential elections in 2025, and we are seeing that now. Would that be an innocent move? The answer may well be no, it's not. We are afraid that the days ahead are pregnant, and we may be hearing some news from Geneva that may not be very, very comfortable. And in such scenarios, the military may be poised to take over. So it's not for nothing that he's doing what he's doing, dishing out positions of responsibility and promotions to key military personnel. But again, the question remains, on every lip in Cameroon, where is our president? There is fear in every heart, there is uncertainty in every mind, but nobody dares raise an eyelid because, of course, there is the repressive regime that we all have to deal with. And you see something, but you say nothing. That's the situation in Cameroon as it is now.
Right. Levy, you've touched on very many important issues, including the significance of, the appointment of this general in charge of the presidential guard and how the situation is pregnant for perhaps looming news. But Cameroon has constitutional rules for replacing a president who cannot perform his duties. Why is that path not being discussed openly?
Cameroon is one bizarre country. Nobody wants to discuss that. Nobody wants to question why the laws of the land are never respected, while even the rule of law is not even respected, talk less of constitutional norms, constitutional provisions. And nobody would bat an eyelid because you ask that question, you become pariah. So we just watch and then we wait, and then the day the prince decides to do whatever he thinks is good for him, not for the country, then we will take it as such. But again, I tell you that whoever does not do the bidding of the regime would be in the bad books of the law. So everybody, particularly those of the ruling class and those who are said to have been bought over by the ruling class and by the establishment, they stay quiet and they wait until the day he deems fit to do so. A lot of things are not going on well in Cameroon, not just the constitutional provision you mentioned, but a great many other things are left unaddressed, and then nobody dares bear an eyelid. Nobody discusses it. Nobody is allowed to discuss that. If it comes to public space, it is quashed and said to you that there is a presidential timeline, there is a presidential calendar. And even if he does something he had promised to do after 3 years, he does it in 10 years, the state media, state-owned and state-run media would come out and say he has acted, and people thought he wouldn't act, but he has acted in his own time, in his own way, at his own pace. So it's kind of a jungle where only the regime barons decide the way things are run. Sadly so.
I mean, that's very sad indeed. I mean, so, other than just waiting and staying quiet, you're saying that nothing happens while the president is absent for extended periods of time.
Yeah, and no accountability. Unfortunately, there is no accountability. There is a communications minister who is supposed to keep the people whom he serves informed on the day-to-day whereabouts of the president of the republic, but he doesn't. On the contrary, he reacts to media outlets who hint on the president's health. He comes, he says, and that's always been the case in Cameroon as we see it. They only react to foreign media outlets, to foreign media statements. They don't come to take the baton and communicate to the people. That's the jungle that we find. That's Cameroon for you today, unfortunately so. There is, and I want to draw your attention to something that Dorcas was saying. The communications minister said one thing. The Minister of Higher Education, who is a regime baron and communications go-to person for the ruling party, said another thing. The Minister of Labour and Social Security did say that the president was out on leave. So there are contradicting and conflicting versions of the whereabouts of the president. And I bet you that all of these, and then, of course, the grapevine has its version of what's happening to the president. Others say he's undergone a knee operation, knee surgery. He's not fine. People are taking screenshots or screen captures of him on May 20 when he stood before to execute or to sing the national anthem. His knees were not looking too good. Sources say that he's knock-kneed, but then the knock-knees seemed like they had been walked and some bizarre thing was happening. Something was not very right. And we can't stop speculation from going rife as they are. But then it's some jungle, it's a cacophony, it's some total disorder with nobody wanting to take the lead and tell the people what's happening to the president. Because, of course, I must say to you that right now in Cameroon, every member of government is sitting on a very shaky seat because everyone is expecting a cabinet shuffle. When it would come, the president alone knows. And everybody wants to keep his seat. So it's kind of a hot potato to handle at a time like this.
And listen, Cameroon has a lot on its plate, and you've sort of alluded to it a little bit, but I want us to talk more about it. I mean, there's the Anglophone conflict, Boko Haram in the north, a rocky economy. How much of this is being made worse by the leadership vacuum, would you say?
All of it. The Boko Haram insurgency in the north, the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and the southwest. There is a porous border to the east of the country with frequent spillovers of the conflict in neighboring Central African Republic, affecting parts of the people in the east, on the eastern border. And then there is the sad economic situation. Covering capital of these is the bad governance that we have in the country in various sectors of governance. The economy, urban management, urban planning. Just a few days ago, I saw a report on Yaoundé, on the street of Yaoundé. As you move in the streets of Yaoundé, as well as in the major streets of major cities, expect some stench and filth at every corner, with heaps of rubbish piled over, unattended to, unevacuated, unmanaged. That's how the country is run. Disorder in almost every sector in government, zero accountability. So all of this with an absentee landlord, with the president said to be working remotely, brings more questions than answers to the mind of the people. But I'll bet you that the Anglophone crisis is getting worse by the day. Armed groups non-state actors dictating the laws in places where they've taken over. There are places that are completely stateless. Parts of the northwest region and the southwest region are run by armed groups. A lot of these armed groups have been splintered into various command structures. And who pays the price? And then there have been talks of Cameroon getting into a sordid economic state with heavy and huge debts unattended to, unpaid, the internal debt unattended to. And we just fear that things may go south in the days ahead.
Okay. I'm wondering about the opposition in Cameroon. What are they doing? What are they saying? Are they drumming up support for, the public with their calls for a declaration of vacancy? What's their response and reaction at the moment?
Of course, the opposition is drumming support for the public, and according to the opposition, there's some sort of constitutional vacuum. They argue that the president can't be governing the country by signing papers away from home, and that it is a right of Cameroonians to have more updates as to the whereabouts and state of the president. Remember, like I earlier on said, there's the need to update about the whereabouts of the president, though we know that he's in Geneva, Switzerland. But then he's been working away from home, which that's not supposed to be the case without, telling Cameroonians. So the opposition is simply saying that Paul Biya is trying to consolidate power by working far away from home, and that wasn't supposed to be the case. And they are implying that there's some sort of problems at the top. Him doing that away from home shows that there's some sort of problems, and he's trying to consolidate power and trying to watch out for any eventual coup d'etat that may want to arise in Cameroon. So virtually, the opposition has said that Paul Biya is supposed to be around to govern the country around, and they're supposed to know if at all he's fine or not.
And I was going through some comments on social media, and people had some interesting thoughts on the latest military and security appointments. What are people actually telling you on the ground? You've talked slightly about a possible coup d'etat. What more can you tell us?
Well, what is happening on the ground? You see, this is historic. We've seen Raymond, who has been leading the presidential guard since 2013. Promoting him from colonel to brigadier general is kind of significant. The presidential guard is the unit responsible for protecting the president, and analysts are reading a clear political message. They're saying that this signals that the inner circle is still loyal, and that even the way the president is trying to remain in control. Remember, he did similar reshuffles after the Gabon coup in 2023 and even before the elections. And there's still no vice president yet. So appointing the general now, according to analysts, could be to secure power. So that's what has been happening around. People are asking the question, why now? It came with a lot of mixed reactions, and the public is just trying to know why now, and that's it.
Levy, is there any sign at all that preparations for a political transition are, quietly underway, and what can we expect?
Now, it's difficult to say, but I think that anybody watching closely would agree that we don't need a soothsayer to say that something is being cooked on the ground, because it's crystal clear that this president cannot see this term through. She can't handle this term till the end, because at best, somewhere before midway into this term, he would hand over power to somebody he had prepared a long time ago. Now, speculations arrive that he intends to do a kind of dynasty political transition, and there are competing and contradictory, conflicting voices in the inner sanctum of State House, where it's recorded that his spouse, the current First Lady, is against the choice of his first son, Frank Emmanuel Biya, as president. I think we all remember that not too long ago, they have tried to test the waters by sending out on social media a fake decree appointing him as vice president. And then other sources had come out to debunk that news. They were actually testing the waters. But then something the Biya regime, or Biya himself, has maintained is in-house fighting. And he seems to like it because there are lots of internal factions, warring factions, throat cutters They are bent on seeing that the person who takes over power is one of theirs. And people still say that that's why they made the last elections the way it was, where somebody is said to have won, but they didn't want to give him the victory. So I bet you that yes, there is a political transition or in the offing, but tailored to, they want it to be tailored to suit their ambitions and their intentions. There are people, each of these factions have people they want to see go up to the helm of the state. And because there is a lack of agreement in these two factions, yes, there is a political transition in the offing. How that pans out now is the question that begs to be answered.
Now, I want us to come to a close and give you both some final words. But Levi, just as a final question, Cameroon has survived 44 years of centralized one-man rule. Now, when this era eventually ends, however it ends, what does a stable democratic Cameroon actually look like? And does the country have the institutional foundations to get there?
I would say no, because this regime has not left the kind of legacy that would smoothen the transition that Cameroonians expect. So right now, our nation Cameroon is in the hands of Allah. So we all say that we pray for the best, but you see, it's a regime that has never thought of the next generation. It's a regime that has essentially thought of nothing but winning the next elections. The ruling class never thinks about it tomorrow, never think even that, tomorrow we may not be there, tomorrow we can cover the baton to the next generation. They have never sat down to think that in politics, you will never succeed until your successor succeeds. No, they don't think about that. That's why in this kind of Jacobean system where it's been hyper centralized, all of power on one man, it would be difficult but feasible, depending on the kind of political leader we have after this.
And Dorcas, final remarks?
There is no official announcement of a political transition yet in Cameroon, but with the most visible happening political-wise, which has been the recent strategic military reshuffle. But then I see the reshuffle appears mindful of national geopolitics and internal security, given it comes during the president's longest absence abroad in so many years. So while there's no concrete secession evidence, these changes are widely interpreted as a signal of stability and control during the sensitive period in Cameroon. You should understand that there's been huge talks as to what is really happening with Paul Biya and whether the country is being properly governed while he is away. People are asking if he's okay health-wise, and why there have been so little information about his activity in Geneva. Other contents being raised is that of governance. Remember, the new cabinet promised by the head of state shortly after last October's election is still not being named. Also, the new position of vice president created in April is still vacant. So Cameroonians are asking who is actually making decisions, the day-to-day decisions in Cameroon. So there's this growing frustration over lack of official updates regarding the president's whereabouts.
Thank you very much. Levi Mbushu, political and global affairs analyst, and DW's correspondent Dorcas Ekupe. Thank you for your insights.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Cameroonians have been living this reality for weeks now, and many have strong feelings about it. Let us hear from some of them.
He has never truly governed Cameroon as a president for all Cameroonians. Instead, he has run the country as though it were his personal business with little accountability to the people. Have you ever seen a country where the president can reportedly be absent for 65 days without clear and credible proof of life?
Honestly speaking, I am very, very much concerned about this prolonged absence. It is true, it is not the first time, but this time around the country is at the crossroads. A lot of things are going wrong in the country as we speak.
Whether Paul Biya returns tomorrow, next month, or not at all, the deeper question in Cameroon isn't about one man. It's about a system built entirely around him and what happens when that system is forced to function without him. Sooner or later, that question will demand an answer. What do you think? Share your thoughts on Facebook and TikTok at DW Africa. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabi. I'm Lucy Riley. Bye for now.
DW. Made for minds.